Right, at 22 minutes to 4, it is time to talk National Apprenticeship Week. It's a week-long celebration that brings together businesses and apprentices across the country to shine a light on the positive impact that apprenticeships make. Joining me today is Michael Steele from Kiwi Education. Afternoon, Michael.
Good afternoon.
And apprentices Dan.
Hiya.
Debbie.
Hi.
And Claire.
Hello.
Lovely to have you all there. We're going to be talking about your experiences in a little bit. First of all, Michael, tell me a little bit about Kiwi Education, what you do and why this week is a big week for you.
Sure. Kiwi Education, we are a Southampton-based training provider based on Portland Terrace, and we deliver a number of different apprenticeships to businesses across the South Coast. And they range from traditional apprenticeships in trades such as gas and electrical, right through to customer service, hospitality, HR, marketing. It's a real diverse space that apprenticeships sit in now. And National Apprenticeship Week is around celebrating and promoting apprenticeships as an education pathway for people of any age from 16 upwards to talk about what they're doing on programme and to encourage more people to think about apprenticeships as a viable progress in their career.
Okay, now Kiwi Education you're the MD.
I am,
it's
yes.
your baby.
It is.
Tell me, it's been going on for, I'm thinking about 12 years
12
now.
years, that's right.
Tell me why you came up with it as a proposition and what gap had you spotted in the market?
Sure. So I was born here in Southampton, educated and set the business up 12 years ago. I was an apprentice myself here in Southampton when I was 19. We won't work out today. We haven't got the time to work out today how old I am. But I always wanted to have my own business and to move into the space of apprenticeships. I would say that I'm probably the last generation of a true startup business that made it to become a further education establishment. So equivalent to a school or a college, we have Ofsted inspections, Department for Education contracts. So I saw that there was a gap in the market in terms of running an education establishment that involved really progressive education methods, ensuring that apprentices had fun on programme. And I really had fun when I did my apprenticeship back in the late 90s. Back then in Southampton there was 13 independent providers and today there is only 3. So actually provision has decreased over that time. But it was a combination really of running my own business, thinking about my own future and fulfilling my own full potential, thinking about that I only could do that through wanting to push in that direction myself, but mixing it with the joy I had of being an apprentice, working with other apprentices, working with other businesses and working with them to ensure that they could reach their full potential as well.
Well, Kiwi Education has clearly grown over that decade, and I know that you provide training opportunities across the UK. Just tell me a little bit about how apprenticeships have changed and evolved over that decade, because we've had kind of it's gone in fits and starts really.
Yeah, it has. It's an education programme that really has been tinkered with quite a lot by successive governments over the last maybe 10-15 years or so. Back in the days of when we first established Kiwi, there was education apprenticeship programs called frameworks, and they were competency based. So an assessor would go out and visit an apprentice in the workplace. They would go through a tick sheet and see what the apprentice is competent in, have they reached that competency, and essentially tick it off the list. Nowadays, apprenticeships are made up of something called standards, and the trainer is there to ensure that the learner has met the required standard of teaching. And so now it's not so much about what you know and we can observe you doing it, it's about what you don't know and let's teach you to bring you up to that required standard depending on the level of the apprenticeship. So it could be an intermediate apprenticeship, a kind of GCSE level, or there are apprenticeships now at master's level, universities delivering apprenticeships. So at the required level of that learner, the trainer is there to teach the skills and then the learner will go into an external endpoint assessment with an external organisation, and then they will need to prove that they've met the standard to that organisation.
Now, the apprenticeship levy was brought in to encourage employers to take apprenticeships on. How do you counter arguments where they say, well, it's just a way of getting a cheap workforce?
Well, not so much the cheap workforce, because the apprenticeship levy is not there to pay wages of the apprentices. So the businesses will still need to pay the required salaries that are set by the government. The apprenticeship levy is there to pay for for the actual apprenticeship training, essentially. Now, there is an argument that actually not enough businesses are using their levy. So there are some businesses that are saying, well, it's all a bit too complicated, and actually let's just not do it. But there are some businesses that are really pushing forward and using it. I think there are some that say that the government, regardless of what political persuasion, that the government are using it as a tax, and actually, there are employers that still think that to this day. But there are a lot of employers that have thought, actually, okay, we have to pay it. It's been coming out each month, and so let's use it, or we lose it, because the government will take it after 2 years if they don't use their funds in their digital account system.
Fascinating stuff. Now, Michael, stay there, because what we'll do is take some music, and then we are going to come and talk to Dan, Debbie and Claire about their experiences as apprentices. So here's Bill Medley with Jennifer Warnes, after which we will be talking Apprenticeship Week. Had the time of my life. I'm having the time of my life here on BBC Radio Solent, where I know you are enjoying the time of your life too. It is 11 minutes to 4, and we are talking National Apprenticeship Week. And in the studio today, Michael Steele from Kiwi Education, and apprentices Dan, Debbie and Claire. So since it is Apprenticeship Week, let's talk to the apprentices. And Claire and Debbie, I understand you have both undertaken the City Ambassador Apprenticeship, which essentially Michael has kind of made up for you, bespoke, with your employer. So Claire, just tell me a little bit about it.
So I'm doing the customer service as well, but the Southampton Ambassador has been very interesting. I was born and raised in Southampton, but we get to go on visits, and I found out so much about Southampton that I actually didn't know. So it has been very, very interesting. Been to places that you don't think of going and you don't see around Southampton. So it's been very, very interesting.
So Michael, just to explain how this apprenticeship came to be, because obviously Claire was working for Kiwi.
Correct.
And you have developed an apprenticeship to essentially develop her, and she gets a qualification.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason we set up the Ambassador Programme is because of feedback from employers in the city that their hospitality and customer facing staff didn't know enough about the city itself, what attractions the city have here, what tours the city has here. We are a tourism city. And so the City Ambassador Programme was created to support those customer facing people. Now, in our office in Portland Terrace in Southampton, we're actually opening a visitor information point, which the city currently doesn't have at the moment. And in partnership with Go Southampton, which Debbie is here today, I wanted to upskill one of my own employees around the knowledge of Southampton, and that's why Claire enrolled onto the customer service City Ambassador Apprenticeship with us.
Debbie, this is all making sense to you, because Michael is talking about Go Southampton, which is where you've been working. What have you got out of the apprenticeship?
Oh, well, alongside my job that I do, working as a city ranger within Southampton. So I work for the Business Improvement District, which comes under the brand of Go Southampton. I'm very much interacting with businesses, speaking to tourists. So things like learning more about Tudor House and learning more about Sea City. We actually get to go on tours when we're on the apprenticeship scheme. So I found that it really brings it to life. So it's not just the paperwork and sitting at a desk. You're actually out and about, meeting people, getting some interactions, and really getting some really great feedback and experiencing it as a visitor as well, which is really important when I'm directing people around the city. So yeah, I found it invaluable, and the experience that I've gained and the confidence that I've gained from it.
It's very interesting, isn't it? Sometimes I think when we think about apprentices, we think about school leavers, but Claire and Debbie, you are both great advocates for picking up an apprenticeship a little bit later in life. Claire, how has it been, the studying and the sort of meeting the standards that Michael was talking about?
Because I work for Kiwi, I find time to do the apprenticeship in work, and the tours that I go on are done during my working hours, and I find it fits in really well, because obviously I'm given the time to be able to do what I need to do to get to the standards that I need to meet, and obviously the tools as well. So it fits in really well in my Monday to Friday work, 9 to 5. So it fits in really well for me. Yeah.
And Debbie, what about the experience of learning when, it's been a while since you've been out of school?
Just a little bit. A couple of weeks. Quite difficult for me initially. I must admit it was a challenge. My partners and my colleagues that have been really, really supportive in supporting me with my sort of additional training that I've had to do, allow me time to do my off the job hours. So you really hope that your company that you work with is very supportive around you, and I'm lucky that mine was. I just really enjoyed it very much and took me out of my comfort zone. I've learned about Excel spreadsheets and things like that I never would have done before. So really strengthened my sort of administration side, which would have been my weakness. So I think it's just helped me balance a lot of my skills that otherwise I wouldn't have been able to.
Well, you've just brought me out in a rash talking about Excel.
I know.
Let's just turn to Dan.
Me too.
Because Dan, you've chosen the apprenticeship route as your career path. So no university for you. Just tell me a little bit about your experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So I left sixth form back in 2015. I then decided that I basically wanted to get into marketing and graphic design. So I chose to do a level 3 apprenticeship in digital marketing. So I was partnered with I signed up to a local provider based here in Southampton. And then later on in my career, once I joined Kiwi, I was then progressing on to a level 4 apprenticeship, which is equivalent to, I guess, a foundation degree. And I've completed that since then, passed with a merit. And now I'm succeeding on to a level 6 marketing apprenticeship aimed at marketing managers. So I'm learning more about marketing at a degree level now. Of course, being able to follow that path without having to go to university and pay the tuition fees myself.
Absolutely. And Michael, that brings me back to you, because it is a professional route now, and as Dan proves, you can kind of pay your way through your training and arrive at a high level qualification.
Absolutely. And there are over 300 different apprenticeships that one now can look at and look at as a progress in their career. And as some of the guys here have touched on today, you're employed, you're earning, the employer is paying for the apprenticeship, you don't have any student debt, you're gaining the experience. It's becoming a much more popular route for those that are thinking about university and an equivalent route. Apprenticeships over the years has been viewed as the poor relation, and I think that really has changed now. Perceptions and understanding of apprenticeships are getting a lot better, and that's what National Apprenticeship Week is all about, because it is about the celebration of people doing apprenticeships, but the promotion that there is more than one route to reach one's full potential. We do a lot of work with local schools in Southampton, speaking at assemblies about apprenticeships and the pathways that you can go down. And of course, we know there's a lot of young people that leave Southampton and go all over the country to different universities. But our mission is to keep the talent here in Southampton and to show Southampton that and show those learners that Southampton is a fantastic city, and we want the talent here.
Michael, that's a brilliant note on which to end. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences of apprenticeships. It's been great. Michael Steele, Dan, Claire and Debbie from Kiwi Education, thank you so much.
BBC Radio Solent.
Tomorrow night, Pomp